I never thought a simple notebook could bring down a $50 million company. But when your boss looks you dead in the eye during an all-staff meeting and says, "If you're not happy with the salary, the door is right there," sometimes you realize that door isn't a threat. It's an invitation. I stood up, grabbed my leather notebook, and walked out. 47 colleagues watched in stunned silence as I threw away what they thought was my entire career. They had no idea that I was about to throw away something much bigger, their company's entire future. What I had documented in that notebook over 15 years would cost them $12 million and destroy a legacy that took decades to build. But let me start from the beginning, because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when good people finally stop being good. My name is Richard Thompson, and for 15 years, I was the guy who made the impossible possible. Senior Systems Architect at Meridian Tech Solutions. Sounds fancy, right? What it really meant was I was the one they called at 2 a.m. when everything went to hell. I was the one who worked weekends while my family ate dinner without me. I was the one who built the systems that kept their million-dollar contracts running smoothly while they took all the credit. Picture this. It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm still hunched over my computer, debugging the new security protocol that could save the company 40% on operational costs. The office is empty, except for the night janitor, who's given up asking why I'm always here. My coffee's gone cold for the third time, but I can't stop. Not when I'm this close to a breakthrough. This isn't just another project for me. This is my masterpiece. A complete overhaul of our backup data system that would revolutionize how we handle client information. I've been working on it for 8 months, pouring everything I know into every line of code. My phone buzzes. A text from Patricia, my wife. "Emily's recital was beautiful. She kept looking for you in the audience." The photo she sends shows our 16-year-old daughter, Emily, at the piano, wearing the blue dress Patricia picked out, scanning the crowd with hopeful eyes. My stomach drops. I'd promised I'd be there. I'd promised I wouldn't miss another one. But here I am, again, choosing work over family, because I believe, foolishly, as I'd later learn, that dedication would eventually be rewarded. I save my work and finally head home at 2:15 a.m. The house is dark and quiet. I peek into Emily's room, and she's fast asleep, her recital program still clutched in her hand. I want to wake her up, to apologize, to explain that Daddy's working so hard to give her a better future. But what kind of future is it if I'm never there to see it happen? The next morning, Emily barely looks at me over breakfast. "How was the recital, sweetheart?" I ask, knowing it's a stupid question. "You would know if you'd been there," she says quietly, not with anger, but with the kind of resignation that breaks a father's heart. "Mom recorded it, though. You can watch it later if you find the time." Patricia gives me that look, the one that says she's tired of making excuses for me, tired of being a single parent while married. "Richard, she only gets one childhood. You're missing it." But I push the guilt down because I have something bigger to show them. In 6 months, when this project launches, everything will be different. I'll get the promotion I've been working toward, and we'll finally have the financial security we've always wanted. How many of you have told yourselves that same lie? That if you just work a little harder, sacrifice a little more, stay late one more night, they'll finally see your worth. At work, I'm presenting my breakthrough to the team. The backup system I've designed isn't just efficient, it's brilliant. It would reduce server costs by 40% while increasing data security by 300%. I've run the numbers a dozen times, tested every scenario, prepared for every question. Exceptional work, Richard, says my manager, David Chen, reviewing the presentation. This could change everything for us. I'm practically glowing with pride. This is it. The project that will finally get me that senior director position I've been chasing for 3 years. The one that comes with a salary that would let Patricia quit her part-time job and focus on her art. The one that would let me take Emily on that European vacation she's been dreaming about. But then I noticed something in the code during final testing. A security vulnerability in our legacy system. Not in my new design, but in the old infrastructure we're still using for current clients. It's not catastrophic, but it's there, like a tiny crack in a dam that could eventually become a flood. The ethical thing would be to report it immediately, but if I do, they'll want to know how long I've known about it, why I didn't catch it earlier. It might delay my project, maybe even derail it entirely. I make a decision that will haunt me. I'll fix it quietly, patch it myself over the weekend, and no one will ever know it existed. After all, I found it, I can fix it, and everyone wins. What could go wrong with a plan that perfect? 2 weeks later, everything changes. Michael Anderson walks into our department like he owns the place, which technically he now does. He's the new VP of Operations, brought in from some hotshot firm in California to streamline operations and increase efficiency. He's 45, impeccably dressed, and has the kind of confident handshake that immediately makes you feel like you're being evaluated. I've heard great things about this team, Anderson announces during his first all-hands meeting. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together. But his smile doesn't reach his eyes, and when he looks at me, really looks at me, there's something calculating there, like he's already decided something about my future that I'm not going to like. The changes start small. Anderson begins hosting strategy sessions that somehow never include me. My direct reports start getting pulled into meetings I'm not invited to. When I ask David Chen about it, he gives me a diplomatic non-answer. Anderson's just getting familiar with all our current projects. Then comes the nepotism bomb. Anderson's son, Tyler, fresh out of college with a degree in business and zero technical experience, gets hired as a junior project coordinator. Within 3 weeks, Tyler's sitting in on senior-level meetings, offering opinions on systems he couldn't code if his life depended on it. Dad says we need to think more strategically about resource allocation, Tyler announces during one particularly painful team meeting, parroting buzzwords he clearly learned from a business textbook. I watch my colleagues' faces, the mixture of disbelief and barely contained frustration as this kid dismisses projects we've spent months developing. But the real betrayal comes from someone I never saw coming. Kevin Martinez has been my closest friend at the company for 10 years. We started as junior developers together, survived 3 rounds of layoffs, covered for each other during family emergencies. His kids call me Uncle Richard. We've shared countless late-night debugging sessions and even more complaints about management over beers after work. Which is why it hits like a physical blow when I accidentally see an email thread between Kevin and Anderson discussing Richard's declining performance and potential replacement strategies. 10 years of friendship, and he's been feeding information about my projects, my ideas, my concerns directly to the man who's clearly planning to push me out. The email is dated 3 weeks ago, meaning Kevin's been reporting on me since Anderson's first day. Every conversation we've had, every frustration I've shared, every innovative idea I've mentioned has been carefully documented and passed along. I feel sick reading Kevin's clinical assessment of my resistance to new leadership and his suggestions for transitioning Richard's responsibilities to more collaborative team members. That night, I sit in my car in the company parking lot for an hour, trying to process the betrayal. Patricia texts, asking if I'll be home for dinner. Emily has a science fair project she wants to show me. Normal family life is happening while my professional world crumbles around me. And suddenly, I realize how completely I've isolated myself. I've been so focused on climbing the corporate ladder that I never noticed someone was busy sawing through the rungs beneath me. When I finally get home, Emily's at the kitchen table, surrounded by poster board and markers, working on her project about renewable energy. "Hey, Dad, want to see what I'm building?" For the first time in weeks, I really look at my daughter. She's grown 3 inches since school started, and there's something different about her face. Less little girl, more young woman. How much have I missed while obsessing over office politics? "Tell me everything," I say, sitting down beside her, as she explains her project with excitement and intelligence that reminds me why I fell in love with engineering in the first place. I make a decision. Whatever's happening at work, I won't let it poison this. I won't let Michael Anderson take away the part of my life that actually matters. But Anderson isn't finished with me yet, not even close. The final assault on my sanity comes disguised as corporate restructuring. Anderson announces a comprehensive review of all current projects to ensure optimal resource allocation. In plain English, he's looking for reasons to kill anything that doesn't have his fingerprints on it. My backup system project, the one I've poured 8 months of my life into, gets temporarily suspended pending further analysis. The security protocol that could save the company hundreds of thousands gets shelved because the timeline doesn't align with our current strategic priorities. Every innovation I've contributed, every solution I've crafted gets quietly buried under layers of bureaucratic nonsense. But here's the kicker. 2 weeks later, Anderson announces a new initiative to revolutionize our data management approach. The presentation he gives to the board is my project, down to the exact specifications I designed, but with all the credit reassigned to his strategic planning team. Tyler Anderson, the kid who couldn't write a Hello World program, is listed as the lead architect. I'm sitting in that boardroom, watching my life's work get rebranded as someone else's genius, and I feel something inside me break. Not snap. That's too violent. This is more like a cable under tension, finally fraying apart. The last thread of faith I had in corporate fairness, in meritocracy, in the idea that good work speaks for itself, just breaks. "Impressive work, Anderson," says the CEO, Margaret Williams. "This could be transformational for our operational efficiency." Anderson soaks up the praise like he's done anything more than steal and rebrand. "Thank you, Margaret. I'm particularly excited about the security enhancements Tyler developed. Really innovative thinking from our younger team members. Tyler beams with pride over accomplishments that exist only in his father's imagination. The rest of the team sits in uncomfortable silence, knowing exactly who really designed every component of this system, but powerless to say anything without risking their own jobs. That evening, Patricia finds me in the garage, just sitting in my car, with the engine off. "Richard, dinner's ready." "They stole it," I say quietly. 8 months of work and they just took it. She opens the passenger door and slides in beside me. We sit in silence for a moment before she speaks. "What are you going to do?" It's a simple question, but it contains multitudes. What am I going to do about the theft? About the betrayal? About the systematic dismantling of everything I've built? About the fact that I've sacrificed my family for a company that sees me as disposable? I don't know, I admit, but I'm tired of being the good guy who finishes last. 2 days later, Anderson calls an all-staff meeting. These have become monthly humiliation rituals, where he announces new policies designed to squeeze more productivity out of fewer people while praising his son for contributions that exist only in his mind. Today's agenda includes performance expectations and team accountability measures. Corporate speak for "I'm about to make your lives more miserable." 47 people pack into the main conference room, and I can feel the collective dread like a physical weight. Anderson starts with his usual corporate cheerleading. We're entering an exciting new phase of growth and optimization, but I'm not really listening. I'm thinking about Emily's science fair project, about the way her face lit up when I finally paid attention to her work. I'm thinking about Patricia's art, gathering dust in our spare room because she's been too busy picking up my emotional slack to pursue her passion. I'm thinking about all the hours I've given to this place, all the nights I've chosen spreadsheets over bedtime stories, all the promises I've broken to my family in service of a company that would replace me tomorrow without a second thought. Which brings me to an important point about commitment and loyalty. Anderson continues, and something in his tone snaps me back to attention. He's looking directly at me now, and there's something predatory in his expression. Some people in this organization seem to think they're irreplaceable. They act like the company owes them something simply because they've been here a long time. The room goes dead quiet. Everyone knows he's talking about me, but nobody dares to look in my direction. This is corporate bullying at its finest. Public humiliation disguised as motivational speaking. "Well, let me be crystal clear about something," Anderson says, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's never doubted his own importance. "If you're not happy with your salary, your position, or your responsibilities here, the door is right there." He points toward the exit with theatrical emphasis, and I feel 46 pairs of eyes waiting to see how I'll react. This is my moment of truth. I can sit here and take it, swallow my pride, and accept whatever scraps they're willing to throw me. Or I can do something that will change everything. I think about my notebook, sitting in my desk drawer. 15 years of documentation. Every project, every innovation, every client relationship I've built, every security protocol I've implemented, and every backdoor I know about, every compliance issue I've quietly fixed, and every corner cutting I've witnessed. 15 years of making myself indispensable while carefully documenting exactly how indispensable I've become. I stand up slowly, deliberately. The silence in the room becomes absolute. You could hear a pin drop in the parking lot. I walk to my desk, which is visible through the glass conference room walls, and retrieve my black leather notebook. 47 people watch me like I'm about to detonate a bomb. Which, in a way, I am. I walk back into the conference room, and Anderson's confident expression falters slightly. He wasn't expecting this. He thought I'd sit there and take it like I always have, like a good little employee who knows his place. I stop directly in front of him, close enough that only he can hear what I say next. You're absolutely right, Michael. The door is right there. I turn to face the room. 46 colleagues who've watched this systematic dismantling of my career without saying a word. Some look sympathetic, others relieved. It's not them. A few seem genuinely shocked at what's happening. For 15 years, I say, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room, I've given everything to this company. I've missed birthdays, anniversaries, school plays, and family dinners because I believed that dedication and hard work would be rewarded. I was wrong. Anderson tries to interrupt. Richard, if you're having performance concerns, we can discuss. I'm not finished, I say, and something in my tone stops him cold. I've watched good people get pushed out to make room for nepotism. I've seen innovation stolen and rebranded. I've witnessed ethical corners cut and problems swept under rugs. And I've documented every single incident in detail. I hold up my notebook, and Anderson's face goes pale. He knows what's in here. Every conversation, every decision, every questionable practice he's implemented since arriving. Everything a person would need to understand exactly how this company has been managed into the ground. So you're right, Michael. The door is right there, and I'm walking through it, but I'm not walking away empty-handed. The silence stretches for what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 seconds. Then I turn and walk toward the exit, my footsteps echoing in the absolute quiet. As I reach the door, I pause and look back one more time. Oh, and Michael? You might want to check your email in about an hour. I've sent some very interesting reading material to the board of directors, the SEC compliance office, and our 3 biggest clients. I think they'll find it illuminating. That's when Anderson realizes that the quiet guy he's been systematically destroying isn't just walking away. He's walking away with the power to destroy everything Anderson has built. The notebook in my hand contains 15 years of carefully documented evidence of every shortcut, every ethical violation, every instance of fraud and mismanagement that's happened under his watch. I walk out of that conference room knowing that I've just declared war on a $50 million company. But for the first time in months, I'm not scared. I'm not angry. I'm not even particularly upset. I'm free. And they have no idea what's about to hit them. The drive home, after walking out of that conference room, was the strangest 23 minutes of my life. I should have been terrified. I'd just thrown away 15 years of job security, benefits, and a steady paycheck. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in months. My phone was buzzing constantly with texts from colleagues, but I ignored them all. There was only one call I needed to make, and it wasn't to apologize or beg for my job back. I pulled into a parking lot 3 blocks from home and dialed a number I'd memorized months ago, but never had the courage to use. Marcus Webb, VP of Technology at Hartfield Industries, our biggest competitor, and the company that had been trying to poach me for 2 years. Richard Thompson, Marcus answered before I could even speak. I heard you might be calling. Word travels fast in this industry. How could you possibly? Margaret Williams called me 15 minutes ago. Apparently, there's been some kind of incident at Meridian Tech, and several board members are asking very pointed questions about system vulnerabilities and documentation. She wanted to know if we'd had any contact with you recently. I had to laugh. Anderson's carefully orchestrated humiliation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of breaking me, he'd just pushed me toward the competition with a nuclear weapon in my back pocket. Marcus, are you still interested in that conversation we started 6 months ago? The one about you bringing your client relationships and system expertise to Hartfield? Richard, I've got a contract ready to email you right now. When can you start? How about tomorrow? 24 hours. That's all the head start I needed to activate what I'd been calling my nuclear option for the past 3 years. See, when you're the guy who designs systems, fixes problems, and maintains client relationships for 15 years, you don't just walk away empty-handed. You walk away with the architectural blueprints of an entire company's technological infrastructure. And more importantly, you know exactly where all the load-bearing walls are located. My notebook contained more than just documentation of Anderson's misconduct. It contained 15 years of client communications, system passwords, security protocols, and most crucially, a detailed map of every single vulnerability in Meridian Tech's infrastructure. Not because I was planning corporate espionage, that would be illegal and unethical, but because I was the one who built these systems, and I was the only one who truly understood how to maintain them. Every security patch I'd installed had my digital signature. Every backup protocol ran on servers I'd configured. Every client integration relied on APIs I'd designed and maintained. Anderson thought he could just rebrand my work and move forward without me, but he fundamentally misunderstood something crucial. I wasn't just an employee who happened to know about technology. I was the technology. The first phase of my plan was beautifully simple. I called our 5 biggest clients, accounts that represented nearly 60% of Meridian Tech's revenue, and had what you might call consultative conversations about their technology needs. Jim Morrison, Data Flow Systems, I said, reaching Jim on his direct line. We'd worked together for 8 years, and I'd personally saved his company from 3 major data breaches. Richard, how are you, buddy? I was just thinking about that security update you recommended last month. When are we implementing that? Well, Jim, that's actually why I'm calling. I'm no longer with Meridian Tech as of today, and I wanted to make sure you're aware of some potential vulnerabilities in your current setup. There was a pause. What kind of vulnerabilities? The kind that could cost you millions if they're not addressed properly. Look, I can't discuss this over the phone, but I'm starting my own consulting firm, and I'd like to offer my services to help transition your systems to a more secure configuration. Would you be interested in a meeting? By the end of the day, I had meetings scheduled with all 5 major clients. Not because I was bad-mouthing Meridian Tech. I was too professional for that. But because these were relationships I'd built personally, trust I'd earned through years of solving their problems and protecting their data. When I explained that I was no longer available to support their systems through Meridian Tech, they naturally wanted to understand their options. The second phase was more technical and infinitely more satisfying. Remember that security vulnerability I'd discovered in the legacy system? The one I'd decided to fix quietly rather than report? Well, funny thing about security patches, they only work as long as the person who installed them is around to maintain them. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't plant viruses or delete files or steal data. I simply removed my personal patches and modifications, the ones that existed outside of official company documentation, because I'd implemented them on my own time to keep the systems running smoothly. These weren't company assets. They were my intellectual property, installed as a professional courtesy to prevent problems. Without those patches, Meridian Tech's systems reverted to their original state. A state that included several security vulnerabilities that would become apparent within 48 to 72 hours. The third phase was where things got legally interesting. Over the years, I developed 3 major innovations that were officially credited to Meridian Tech, but had been created entirely on my own time, using my own resources, based on my own research. The company had never formally filed patents on these innovations. They just assumed they owned anything their employees created. That assumption was about to cost them dearly. On Thursday morning, while Anderson was probably trying to figure out why his newly restructured team couldn't solve a simple server configuration issue, I was sitting in the law offices of Harrison Matthews and Associates, filing formal intellectual property claims on 3 pieces of technology that formed the backbone of Meridian Tech's competitive advantage. "The case is surprisingly strong," said Jennifer Harrison, the IP attorney who'd been handling technology disputes for 20 years. "If you can demonstrate that these innovations were developed independently, using your own time and resources, and that the company never properly documented ownership." "I can demonstrate all of that," I said, opening my notebook to pages of dated entries, personal emails, and documentation showing that I'd developed these systems during evenings and weekends, often at home, using my own equipment and software licenses. "Then Meridian Tech has a serious problem. If we're successful, they'll need to license this technology from you or stop using it entirely. Given how integral these systems are to their operations." She didn't need to finish the sentence. We both knew what this meant. By Friday afternoon, Anderson's week had gone from bad to catastrophic. The security breach I'd predicted had occurred exactly as I'd documented it would. Not because I'd caused it, but because I was no longer there to prevent it. Dataflow Systems had discovered unauthorized access attempts on their servers and was demanding an immediate explanation from Meridian Tech. "Richard, this is Michael Anderson." The voicemail was time-stamped 3:47 p.m. "We need to talk. There seem to be some technical issues that require your expertise. Please call me back as soon as possible." I deleted the message without listening to it a second time. The second voicemail came at 6:23 p.m. "Richard, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to discuss bringing you back in a consulting capacity to help resolve some system issues. We're prepared to offer very competitive terms." The third voicemail arrived at 11:15 p.m. "Richard, please. We've got clients threatening to pull their contracts. Whatever you want. Title, salary, equity. We can work something out. Just call me back." I never called him back. But I did send him an email Saturday morning. "Michael, thank you for your voicemails. I'm afraid I'm no longer available for consulting work with Meridian Tech, as I'm now under exclusive contract with Hartfield Industries. However, my attorney Jennifer Harrison would be happy to discuss licensing arrangements for the intellectual property that Meridian Tech is currently using without authorization. Her contact information is attached. Best regards, Richard." Monday morning brought news that Dataflow Systems was terminating their contract with Meridian Tech, citing unacceptable security vulnerabilities and lack of technical competence. They'd signed with Hartfield Industries instead, specifically requesting that Richard Thompson lead their account. Tuesday, Phoenix Manufacturing followed suit, Their CTO had worked with me for 6 years and trusted my recommendation that they needed more robust and reliable technical support. By Wednesday, 3 of the 5 major clients had jumped ship, and the remaining 2 were demanding immediate meetings to reassess the technical capabilities of our service provider. Anderson's carefully constructed empire was collapsing in real time. And the beautiful irony was that he'd triggered it himself with his arrogant power play in that conference room. If he'd just left me alone, ignored me, let me continue doing my job quietly in the background, none of this would have happened. But his need to humiliate me publicly had forced my hand, and now he was discovering the difference between managing people and actually understanding the systems they build. Thursday brought the legal tsunami. Harrison, Matthews, and Associates filed formal intellectual property claims in federal court, demanding that Meridian Tech immediately cease using the 3 core technologies I'd developed. The injunction was temporary. It would take months to resolve in court, but the damage to investor confidence was immediate and devastating. Meridian Tech's stock price dropped 18% in a single day. Friday afternoon, Margaret Williams called me personally. "Richard, I think we need to have a conversation." "Hello, Margaret. I assume this is about the intellectual property claims?" "Among other things, yes." "Richard, I want you to know that the board had no knowledge of how you were being treated. If we had known about Michael's management style, we would have intervened. With all due respect, Margaret, the board hired Michael. You gave him authority over the technical operations without understanding what he was actually managing. That's not an oversight. That's negligence." There was a long pause. What would it take to resolve this situation? "That's not really up to me anymore. My attorney is handling the intellectual property claims, and those will be resolved through the legal system. As for the client relationships, well, those were personal relationships built over many years. I can't force people to do business with Meridian Tech if they've lost confidence in the company's technical capabilities. Richard, we're prepared to offer you whatever you want. Name your price." "Margaret, 6 months ago, I would have been thrilled to hear you say that. But now, I'm making twice my old salary at Hartfield. I own equity in a growing company, and I get to go home for dinner with my family every night. Why would I want to go backward?" That conversation ended the way I knew it would, with Margaret understanding that the damage was irreversible, and Anderson's restructuring had cost them their most valuable technical asset, along with 60% of their revenue. But the real satisfaction came that evening when I walked through my front door at 5:30 p.m. The earliest I'd been home on a weekday in 3 years. "Dad!" Emily jumped up from the kitchen table where she was doing homework. "You're home early." "I'm home on time," I corrected her. "This is when I should have been coming home all along." Patricia looked up from her easel in the corner of the living room. She'd started painting again for the first time in 5 years. "How was your first week at the new job?" "Challenging, rewarding, and surprisingly normal. I actually took a lunch break today. A real one, outside the office." "What's a lunch break?" Emily asked with mock confusion, and we all laughed. That weekend, something unprecedented happened. I didn't work. Not even a little bit. No emails, no calls, no quick tasks that needed to be finished. Patricia and I took Emily to the Science Museum, where she explained renewable energy systems with the same enthusiasm I'd once felt for corporate technology projects. We had dinner at the Italian place we'd been meaning to try for 2 years, but never had time for. We watched a movie together, all three of us, on the couch, like a normal family. On Sunday evening, as I was helping Emily with her calculus homework, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. It was local. Richard Thompson. Mr. Thompson, this is David Chen. I'm sorry to bother you at home. My former manager sounded exhausted. Hello, David. How are you holding up? Not well, to be honest. Richard, I need to ask you something, and I want you to know this conversation is completely off the record. Okay. Were you planning this? The timing, the legal claims, the client departures. It's all so coordinated. It feels like you had this mapped out for months. I thought about how to answer that honestly. David, I've been documenting everything that happened at Meridian Tech for years. Not because I was planning to leave, but because I'm a detail-oriented person who likes to keep records. When Anderson made it clear that there was no place for me in his vision of the company, I simply used the information I'd already gathered to protect my interests and my future. So you weren't planning to destroy the company? I didn't destroy anything, David. I removed my intellectual property, ended my client relationships, and documented misconduct. Anderson destroyed the company by creating a hostile work environment and making terrible strategic decisions. I just stopped preventing the natural consequences of his actions. There was a long pause. 13 people have been laid off this week. The entire technical support division is being eliminated. I felt a pang of guilt about that. These were good people who'd done nothing wrong except work for a company with terrible leadership. David, I'm sorry about that. Truly. But those layoffs aren't my responsibility. They're Anderson's. He created this situation when he decided to prioritize his ego over the company's technical capabilities. I know, David said quietly. I needed to hear you say it. Are you okay? Do you need help finding a new position? Actually, that's the other reason I called. Hartfield Industries reached out to me yesterday. They're expanding their technical team and wanted to know if I'd be interested in a senior management position. The recruiter mentioned that you'd recommended me. I smiled. You're a good manager, David. You just got stuck with an impossible situation. Hartfield is a better company with better leadership. You'll like it there? Thank you, Richard, for everything. After hanging up, I found Patricia in the kitchen, making tea. How are you feeling about all this? She asked. Really? It was a fair question. I'd spent 3 weeks systematically dismantling a company I'd helped build, ending careers of people I'd worked with for years, and walking away from 15 years of my professional life. By any objective measure, it should have felt traumatic. Relief, I said finally. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. No regrets? About leaving Meridian Tech? None. About the way it happened? Maybe some. I wish Anderson hadn't forced me into this position, and I'm sorry that good people got hurt in the process. But I'm not sorry for protecting myself and my family. She handed me a cup of tea. Emily asked me yesterday if you were going to start traveling for work again. What did you tell her? That her dad learned something important about priorities. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she asked me about the new job. Is it better than the old one, Dad? In every way that matters, sweetheart. Good. I like having you home for dinner. I like being home for dinner. Dad, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Mom told me what happened. Not the business stuff, but that some people were being mean to you at work, and you decided not to let them anymore. Out of the mouths of babes. Sometimes, Emily, you have to stand up for yourself, even when it's scary or difficult. Even when other people think you should just accept being treated badly. Like bullies at school? Exactly like bullies at school. The only difference is that adult bullies wear suits and use big words. 6 months later, I was sitting in the conference room at Hartfield Industries presenting a new security protocol to our biggest client, Data Flow Systems. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now being paid significantly more to do essentially the same work I'd been doing at Meridian Tech, just with better leadership, better resources, and actual appreciation for my contributions. "Exceptional work, Richard," said Marcus Webb after the presentation. "This protocol addresses every concern we've had about data security. Jim Morrison specifically requested that you lead this implementation." After the meeting, I checked my phone and found a text from Patricia. "Emily's science fair is at 7 p.m. tonight. You promised you'd be there." I smiled and texted back. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Leaving the office at 5:30. That evening, standing in the high school gymnasium, watching Emily explain her renewable energy project to judges and parents, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. 6 months ago, I'd been an overworked, underappreciated corporate drone who'd sacrificed his family for a company that saw him as disposable. Tonight, I was a respected consultant with equity in a growing firm, watching my daughter pursue her passion for science with the same intensity I'd once reserved for corporate politics. My phone buzzed with an email from Jennifer Harrison. "Richard, thought you'd want to know. Meridian Tech settled the intellectual property claims today. Full licensing agreement with retroactive payments. You should receive a check for $847,000 within 30 days. Nearly $1 million for technology I'd developed in my spare time. Technology that Anderson had tried to steal and rebrand as his own innovation. The money was nice, but the vindication was even better." "Dad, are you listening?" Emily was tugging on my sleeve. "Sorry, sweetheart." "What did you say?" "I asked if you wanted to meet Dr. Sarah Martinez. She's a professor at the university. And she said my project shows real potential for advanced study. She wants to talk to you about summer research programs." As I followed Emily across the gymnasium to meet a professor who might help shape my daughter's future, I realized that Anderson had actually done me a favor. His arrogance and cruelty had forced me to take control of my life in a way I never would have otherwise. He'd pushed me toward a better job, a better work-life balance, and a stronger relationship with my family. Most importantly, he'd taught me that sometimes the door isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. You just have to be brave enough to walk through it, and smart enough to have a plan for what comes next. The notebook that had started this whole journey was now locked in a safe at home, its pages filled with documentation that would never be needed again. I'd learned to build better boundaries, to value my time and expertise appropriately, and to never again confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. And Emily? She won first place at the science fair that night, with a project that demonstrated the kind of innovative thinking and careful documentation that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with problem solving in the first place. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a better life than the one someone tried to take from you. As we drove home that night, Emily clutching her first place ribbon and talking excitedly about summer research programs, Patricia reached over and squeezed my hand. "No regrets?" she asked. echoing the question from 6 months earlier. I looked in the rearview mirror at my daughter, excited about her future and secure in the knowledge that her father would be there to support her dreams. I thought about the work I was doing at Hartfield, challenging and rewarding without consuming my entire life. I considered the financial security that would let Patricia pursue her art without worrying about paying bills. None, I said. Not a single one. And for the first time in years, I meant it completely.